Hanna loved hippies. He admired their long hair, jeans and tie-dyed t-shirts, marijuana and LSD experimentation, their protests against the Vietnam War, and of course, their music. Thomas Hanna in the 1960s, as professor and chair of the philosophy department at the University of Florida, worked daily with young people and was fascinated with their thinking. Tom insisted on experiencing the hippie culture firsthand and included his children along with him. Our family went to outdoor music festivals, inner tubed down rivers with pot-smoking students, attended parties with marijuana brownies and where LSD was freely available, and once we even wrung the neck of a chicken, plucked its feathers, and cooked it to know where our food came from. Tom believed that young people would change the world with their unconventional ideas and nonviolent ethics. He would pick their brains for how these counterculture youths were thinking about the world, and then thoughtfully combine these ideas with his own deep knowledge of philosophy, science, and social science. Many of his newly fermented thoughts were articulated in his primer on somatics titled Bodies in Revolt. It is a hugely important book, for as a primer, it represents the most basic elements of the science and philosophy behind the larger ideas of somatic fields today. In addition, it is extremely timely now, considering all the extreme events happening in our world today, with the colliding of the slow evolution of man with the fast evolution of technology, endangering our very existence. Bodies in Revolt begins with a premise that social injustice, hate, war, profound loneliness, and spiritual emptiness is being felt by humanity worldwide, and there is an urgent need for our current reactionary culture to change. Unfortunately, things have not changed much since Tom wrote the book in 1969. Indeed, they have only worsened. We had Nixon back then. Now we have Trump. We had covert racism then. Now it's overt with good people on both sides. We had the Vietnam War. Now we have perpetual war. Witness the current Ukrainian and Israeli conflicts. We rebelled against unhealthy foods back then, and now organic foods are in every grocery store, but sadly, fast food remains on every corner. Tom Hanna, if he were still with us, would be railing against all of this with anger and deep sadness. Bodies in Revolt, however, is a very optimistic book and is based on ideas from some of the world's greatest philosophers and scientists who, in Tom's mind, laid the groundwork for somatic thought in the 21st century. The incredible progress of technological advancement has changed our environment to be less threatening and more in our control. Humankind has triumphed for the most part over wild animal attacks, lack of food resources, and lack of shelter from harsh environments. Unfortunately, despite this progress, social injustice, greed, fear, hate, and spiritual emptiness remain. It is the young people, Bodies in Revolt argues, that can clearly see this dichotomy between how far we've come and what still needs to be done. Greta Thunberg, Malala Yousafzai, Emma Gonzalez, and Tyler Okeke are examples of young activists that are working in areas such as climate change, women's rights, gun safety, and voting rights. And there are many other young activists working on important issues today. These young people are the proto-mutants that Tom discusses in Bodies in Revolt. These young activists may be the first in human evolution to clearly see the dichotomy between our incredible technological progress and the frightening human practice of attacking our own environment. The bodies and souls of these young people are in revolt with the way things are and are demanding change. Tom Hanna would undoubtedly encourage us to listen and act on what they have to say. Today's young people are different than their older generations, having grown up with technologies that their parents never experienced as children. Ever since they can remember, children of today have had the internet, cell phones, every imaginable social media app, and green energy technologies as a part of their lives. In this sense, they are what Tom Hanna referred to as the proto-mutants, meaning they are the first adapters, mutants, to live life completely enmeshed with these advanced technologies. Thomas Hanna said, "Technology is a wonderful and astonishing development in human evolution and makes it invitingly easy to explore the uncharted labyrinth of our sensual hungers, but far more significantly, this possibility is an invitation to human beings to discover the nature and extent of human wanting." Our ancient ancestors, on the other hand, were in survival mode 24/7, and they had little time to explore their deeper wants and desires. Tom Hanna notes that mutation occurs when certain traits and abilities are no longer needed. He says in Bodies in Revolt, "Since we no longer spend a great deal of time climbing trees in our bare feet, no one seems particularly disturbed by the speculation that our little toes seem to be mutating out of existence. In addition, no one should be disturbed to realize that, in a similar fashion, our concern for a highly rational and self-conscious intelligence will become considerably diminished. It will be diminished simply because we no longer need it to be a function which we alone can do. Because machines can do it, we no longer need to do it." Case in point, artificial intelligence, AI. AI chatbots may soon replace some human workers and can include multimodal capabilities such as blending text, images, videos, and sound, and further can be used to evaluate and train other AI platforms until there may be no need of humans being involved at all for basic intellectual tasks. In addition, through self-play and unfamiliar environments, an AI can learn from its own experience and improve little by little until, as in the playing of chess, it could surpass any player, human or machine, without any prior programming at all. In Bodies in Revolt, Tom Hanna states, "The law behind this is potent. A somatic function which ceases to serve a practical need in an environmental adaptation will not survive, but will mutate out, at least will diminish to whatever functional level is still needed. And so, the instrument of aggressive rational intelligence, which we once needed to conquer a recalcitrant environment, is now being successfully objectified. Now we can return to other matters and concerns." So if the abilities of AI may someday negate the need for basic human-generated information, will this allow us to happily return our concerns to other matters such as becoming more fully somatic beings? The answer may involve a revolt. A revolt against old human patterns of environmental domination and a move toward creating new patterns of understanding and interrelationships with nature and each other. For Tom Hanna, it was clear. A somatic evolution revolution is upon us. Evolution occurs through a gradual change to the DNA of a species over many generations. It can occur by natural selection when certain traits created by genetic mutations help an organism survive or reproduce. Such mutations are thus more likely to be passed on to the next generation, so they increase in frequency in a population. Gradually, these mutations and their associated traits become more common among the whole group. These evolutionary changes, however, occur so gradually that it is difficult to see clearly in the short span of our own lifetimes. But perhaps we can see some changes if we look closely at the behavior and interests of today's younger generation. For instance, look at the popularity of the movie Oppenheimer, which warns of the dangers of man and technology to the future of the planet, alongside the Barbie movie's success, which highlights the need for more progressive gender norms. This huge interest and success in both movies show the revolutionary thinking of younger people. In Bodies in Revolt, Tom Hanna states, "It is without question that the achievement of a technological environment is simultaneously the fulfillment and destruction of the traditional culture of the West. And with equal emphasis, I must announce that the only option left open for the survival of mankind is the rapid development of a radically different relationship to our environing world. The development of a radically humanistic culture." Perhaps our newest generation, Gen Alpha, born 2010 through 2024, are capable of leading the development of this radically humanistic new culture. Generation Alpha are the firstborn entirely in the 21st century and the most diverse in United States history, with 47% non-white. In addition, 96% of Gen Alphas believe that everyone should be treated fairly no matter what they look like, and 67% say they want to have a career someday that helps them save the planet, save lives, or to use technology in their future professions to make the world a better place. It appears we are at a tipping point in our evolution. Our perception and understanding of ourselves, others, and our environment is changing. Technology is helping us control things around us, but unfortunately, these positive changes are not being felt deep inside of us. Human beings are increasingly lonely and feeling spiritually empty. People stare at their cell phones while in public instead of talking to each other. Fewer people are getting married and having families, and less people are feeling like they are a part of any type of truly loving community. These sad facts of inner emptiness and lack of meaning beg the question of how we might tip the evolutionary curve toward the somatic evolution that Tom Hanna envisioned. In Bodies in Revolt, Tom Hanna highlights the importance of somatic accommodation for a somatic revolution evolution to begin. Accommodation, according to the work of developmental psychologist Jean Piaget, involves altering one's existing ideas, known as schemas, about how the world operates in response to new information and experiences. Tom Hanna explains in Bodies in Revolt, "If we recognize that at this exact moment, you and I and our race are still involved in the mutation and evolution of our somatic beings, an evolution which has brought us to where we are and is continuing to take us beyond this. When we recognize this, then we are compelled to recognize that these organized structures of perception and understanding studied by Piaget are not fixed and final. They are mutable. And as mutating somatic structures, we have been perceiving and understanding a slightly different world with each successive generation of humans. This new understanding that the environment that we live in is no longer a threat to us, but quite the inverse, that we ourselves have become a threat to our environment, has created within humans what Piaget termed as disequilibrium. Disequilibrium occurs when new information and experiences do not align with one's current understanding. This prompts a person to seek a remedy in one of three ways. Ignore the conflicting information because you are simply not ready to deal with it. Assimilate the information by making it fit into what you already know and understand, or accommodate the information by updating your understanding into something entirely new. Climate deniers, for instance, acknowledge that there are more weather-related extremes today, but they assimilate that knowledge into their understanding that drought, famines, floods, etc. have always been a part of cycles within human history. Other people simply ignore or do not think they can do anything about these issues, so they discount them altogether. But many other people, especially the younger generation, are accommodating this information into a completely new understanding of the dire situation we are now in and the importance of advocacy and action in our relationship with our environment. According to Bodies in Revolt, the next step for a positive somatic evolution to occur is the development of an expanded parasympathetic awareness of the inner somatic self. Tom Hanna explains, if one's conditioning is in the traditional type of perception and behavior typical of Western fear aggression, the approach of constrictive conscious control, then an attempt to cultivate the somatic experience of accommodative sensual behavior will be somatically repulsive, if not literally convulsive. It will be so because the avenues of a parasympathetic energy expression have been so long atrophied and constricted that the musculature is incapable of relaxing and becoming a medium for sensual accommodative energy expression. Without a doubt, the parasympathetic functions of the autonomic nervous system are beginning to undergo an intensive period of development and application. But this in no wise means that the sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system will cease to exist. For Tom Hanna, to learn, to communicate, to exchange information are the very essence of adaptation. Through balanced somatic adaptation, a soma can engage in communicative exchange with their environment, as if literally becoming an organic part of that environment, like two wheels of creation, totally engaged with the other. It seems that we are in a difficult place right now, a tipping point. Disequilibrium is being felt among all of us on some level. In America, the rise of the MAGA movement may be due to assimilating social justice, greed, hate, and loneliness into one's embedded belief system that the other is taking away privileges that should belong only to their tribe. Not just here in America, but democracies around the world are increasingly delicate, and the appeal of authoritarians are seductive to many. But seeking answers from outside authorities is not the way for a somatic evolution to occur. The answer instead is inward. In order to achieve these new accommodative abilities, parasympathetic awareness is essential. We need to learn how to use our parasympathetic systems to interact with the environment in a symbiotic manner. In past human history, the soma has evolved by using the assimilative drives of fear and anger. In Bodies in Revolt, Hanna argues we need instead to adapt the accommodative drives of acceptance, openness, and lack of fear. Hanna explains in Bodies in Revolt, necessarily, training in perception is central to this mutant educational process. Human beings must finally learn what it is to really see and hear and touch without editing and monitoring these perceptions through the constrictions of conscious, focusing, or unconscious fear. Very few people know how to relax and surrender to the entire inflooding panorama of the environing world. To do so just once is a revelatory, never to be recovered from experience. This is the profound effect of psychedelic drugs, but one does not need drugs in order to perceive. All that one needs is oneself and some guiding fellow human being or beings who can explain how they have learned to perceive in a sensual, accommodative manner and what this feels like to them. The sensual, accommodative experience is the experience of being adapted to some person or some situation that is near you. And in order to be molded and adapted to other beings and other situations, the soma must be loose in happy surrender and relaxation down to the last synapse and muscular fiber. Such an experience is obviously unafraid. It is unashamed, honest, blatantly expressive of the motor drives that have been evoked by that given environmental presence. And so, we back to the hippies. They were the first proto-adapters, mutants, to consider the idea of becoming sensually accommodative to themselves, others, and to the environment. Now we have a new generation of mutants who understand both the wonders of advanced technology and the possibilities of accommodating, not assimilating, our environment with our fellow human beings in symbiotic and mutually beneficial ways. Bodies in Revolt is more than a primer in somatic thinking. It is a guidebook on how to evolve somatically into the next stage of human flourishing, to continue to develop proprioceptive awareness of ourselves, of others, and with our symbiotic relationship with our natural planet. That is the somatic evolution revolution. While this may seem idealistic to some, that a few young people can create a positive revolution, Hanna has some advice. In Bodies in Revolt, he says, relax. Enjoy the struggle, which you will win. In the past, revolutions required work and anxiety. The evolution revolution, however, requires only play and confidence.